I'd like to welcome everybody to the December meeting of the St. Tammany Parish Board of Adjustment. Thank you for being here. First thing, everybody, welcome. Let me get a roll call first, Madam Secretary.
Mr. Valentine?
Here.
Is my microphone on?
Microphone.
Mr. Valentine?
Here.
Doesn't sound. Okay. Mrs. Thomas? Mr. Daly?
Here.
Mr. Blosh?
Here.
Mrs. Spees?
Here.
Mr. Swindell?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Sherman, we have a quorum.
And thank you, and I will, with four members, Ms. Thomas not here as yet. If she comes, she will vote. If not, I will recognize Mr. Swindell to vote in Ms. Thomas's absence. Announcements, please silence all of your electronic devices, whatever it is, turn it off. And I am the worst culprit, so I'm going to do mine right now. Got it turned off. Any appeals to the decision of this board need to be referred to the 22nd Judicial Court. Speaker cards are available over here on my right, your left. You can fill out one if you'd like to speak. But I'll try to recognize everybody, and we don't have too many people here, so I'll make sure you get a chance to speak. There'll be 10 minutes allowed to present the petitioner's case. There will be 10 minutes allowed for an opposition to that, and then 5-minute rebuttals on both sides. After your case has been heard, please exit the building. So we can keep on and keep everything moving along as quickly as possible. On the approval of the minutes, next thing is the minutes from our November meeting. Anyone have any comments on the minutes? I do, if I can recognize myself. On page 4, the second to last paragraph, Ms. Couvion. I don't remember this. I don't agree with it, and I would like to pull that from the minutes and discuss it with all members at some point in time. What this says is all motions should be done affirmatively, and I don't think that's right or necessary. And when there is a motion to deny and it is denied, the result is there's no action. It should not be the final decision of the board. I don't know that I understand it, and I would like to have it discussed.
I don't have a problem. This is verbatim, so word for word as what she said that day. So I'm not changing any words or anything. If you would like to further get some.
I would like to discuss it when she's here.
Okay, maybe next month.
But Mr. Daly would like to.
Just if you vote to deny a permit, and then everyone votes to deny permit, or you vote not to deny the permit, nothing's happened, right? So it's like the double negative. So I think if we have all affirmative votes, then it's clearer to staff about which way we fall. Right?
Well,
but we can talk about it.
I don't understand I do understand the denial of a denial. It's
right.
I don't understand, about all motions have to be affirmative.
Well, maybe it's because then there's always that potential for a denial of a denial if it's a negative. So maybe that's what she was covering.
And most of these are fairly straightforward.
Yeah, let me hang on.
We're voting on a request for a variance.
I think Ms. Couvion's point is when we make a motion, the motion should always be to approve the variance. And that way, when we vote yes, it would be to approve it. We vote no, it would be to deny it every time. So whether I think we should vote yes or no, my motion should always be to approve, and then I could vote no if I don't want to approve it. It's only about the motion. It's just so that the action is always voting yes or no to approve. That's really what it's all about.
Semantics.
It is, but it's...
My point is, we can make a motion to deny the request for the variance.
Yeah, you could, but it's just inconsistent with how the voting should be. Like, she would like for the yes votes to always be affirmatively approving the request, and the no votes to always be to deny the
And I-
request.
I
And that's
would-
why the motion to approve.
Okay, I guess what I'm
Yeah.
saying, I don't necessarily agree with
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
that. And so I would like us all.
But you could disagree
yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Well, and I believe
want Ms.
while-
Thomas to be here when we have this discussion.
Yeah, I believe a while ago we talked about this, and we could put that in our,
Bylaws.
bylaws if we wanted to. It's just not there right now.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, I was objecting to that thing on page 4, but if that's verbatim, then any other comments about the minutes? Could we have a motion then?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Got
Do you want to make it subject to what you're talking about?
no, she said that was verbatim, so I withdrew my opposition. And then we left it that we would talk about it.
There you
In
go.
January. The minutes are pretty close to verbatim. I do my best to reflect exactly what y'all said, and I listen to the meeting every time, so there might be a few more words that are slightly changed, but I do my best to.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the minutes from Mr. Swindell.
Second.
And a second from Mr. Blosh. Any other comment? Vote with your screen. Okay,
All in favor?
motion passed. Now, going to our first case for this afternoon, BOA case number 3095. This is a request by an applicant in NC4 Neighborhood Commercial District to reduce the required setbacks for an existing cellular tower to 40.43 feet and 74.77 feet on the south side, 50.47 feet on the west side, and 15 feet on the east side. Property is located at 23305 Louisiana Highway 1088 in Mandeville, Louisiana. The applicant is Moore 59 LLC, Paul Damian Rees. The representative is Paul Marone. This case was postponed from our November meeting. Who is here? Mr. Paul Marone is here. Please state your name and address, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Paul Marone, P.O. Box 1810, Covington, Louisiana 70434, here on behalf of Moore 59 LLC. When I appeared before you all last month, I asked that the matter be tabled because I was waiting on some information from the tower company regarding the tower, the crumple zone, and the issues that were pertinent to our request before you. Unfortunately, I do not have that information. Despite being assured that we would get the information, we have gotten nothing from them. As a result of that, and given that we are now in the holiday season and I have no confidence I'm going to get anything before your January meeting, I would respectfully request that the matter be tabled until your February meeting so that I have time to continue to follow up with the tower company in hopes of getting that information that I can then bring back to you regarding this tower and its engineering.
Mr. Marone, let me ask, are we, give me some guidance. How many times can we postpone these things? Are we okay to do it again and do it for 2 months?
You're able to do it for the next session, from my understanding.
So we could go,
You
oh,
go to
the
Jan-
next, I could go
go
the
to
next session,
January.
which is January.
You may
But-
be able to go beyond that, but I think it's only an extension of one per.
No, you can extend for
Can
2
send
months.
further.
Yes.
So we can do it.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we,
Mr. Spees, I have a motion from Mr. Spees to postpone it to the February meeting. Any discussion? Can I hear a second?
I'll second.
Got a second from Mr. Daly? No further discussion. Vote with your screen. Motion passed
Motion carries.
unanimously. Okay. The next case, our case number 2 for this afternoon, is BOA case 3097. Request by an applicant in an I-1 industrial district to reduce a required 500-foot setback from the nearest bank of the waterway to 50 feet and reduction of the required 100 feet no cut buffer to 50 feet on the north, south, east, and west sides of the property. The property is located the north side of Louisiana Highway 16 in Sun, Louisiana. The applicant and representative is Mr. Shane Combre, and this case was also postponed from November. Please state your name and address, please, Mr. Paul Maroon.
Would you like to hear the staff comments?
What's that?
Would you like to hear the
I
staff?
would love to hear the staff comment. Sorry, I'm sorry. Just a minute.
As per the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code, an excavation site shall be set back a minimum of 500 feet from the nearest bank of a waterway or the center line of the Tammany Trace, and also all excavations shall be set back a minimum of 100 feet from the front, sides, and rear property lines of a site. The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a road to access a future commercial excavation to be located in the rear of the property. As shown in the attached survey, the width of the property varies, being approximately 300 feet at its narrowest point, which could create a hardship to provide the required 500-foot setback from the nearest bank of the waterway and the required 100-foot setback on the west side of the property. However, no evidence has been provided to support the reduction of the required buffers on the entire length of the east and west sides of the property and on the north and south sides of the property. Moreover, due to the intensity of the proposed use, buffers should be maintained on the south, east, and west sides, since there are some existing single-family residences on the adjacent properties. Should the board be in favor of granting the variance as requested, it should be subject to submitting a scale drawing showing the proposed buffers, size of the road, and applying for a land clearing permit. Should the board be in favor of granting a reduction of just a portion of the east and west sides of the property, it should be subject to providing a land clearing permit application and a revised plan showing the required 100-foot no-cut buffers on the north, south, west, and portion of the east buffers not abutting the waterway. The location of the two-way road, including the width of the road from Highway 16 going north along the 100-foot no-cut buffer, and also the size of the buffer on the east side of the property from the road access to the bank of the waterway.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Paul Marone again, this time on behalf of Mr. Cambry, P.O. Box 1810, Covington, Louisiana 70434. So this property, the 41.88 acres, as Mr. Ballantyne noted, is on the north side of Highway 16 near the Village of Sun, the very northern part of the parish. The property is currently zoned I-1 industrial, and it is intended to be used as a sand and gravel excavation site. Sites up in this area, those of you who are familiar with this part of St. Tammany, is very common. There's a long history of sand and gravel operations up in this area, really all along the Bogachitta River through northern St. Tammany into Washington and even on up into Mississippi. So this is in furtherance of those historical uses in that area. There are two variances that we're requesting. One is from the 500-foot waterway setback, as Ms. Lambert noted, and the other is from the 100-foot perimeter setback that applies to all of the boundaries. There are really two hardships that gives rise to these requests. The first and the primary is the shape and configuration of the property. As you see, it's very narrow on the southern half or two-thirds of the property. If you apply these buffers, the 500-foot setback and the 100-foot setback, it renders portions of the property totally unusable because the property is not 500 feet wide. And the other portions of the property, we respectfully submit, is overly burdensome and unduly restricts the use of the property. And we believe respectfully that there is a way in which to accomplish, I think, what staff would like, which is to preserve some of those buffers, but also accommodate some of the uniqueness of this site. So I passed around a crude sketch that I'll refer to a little bit because it gets a little confusing as I try to explain what we want to do on different parts of the property. But let's start with the 500-foot waterway setback. We're proposing to reduce that setback to 50 feet. So the waterway, as you'll see in your staff comments, is along the eastern side, a portion of the eastern side, basically the southeastern side of the property. And in that portion of the property, we only have a total width of about 300 to 350 feet. So 500 feet would push us entirely off of our property, rendering the whole southern portion of the property totally unusable. So for that reason, we believe there's a hardship, and we would respectfully request that we have a 50-foot setback in that area. So where did we get this 50-foot setback from? Well, we looked at what the stream management zones were for timber operations. We said, well, where you have a stream and you have timber operations is not exactly what we're doing with sand and gravel, but what do they require as far as a setback? And those are 50 to 25 feet. So we proposed the 50-foot based on that. I would also note, and if you look in your package, you'll see some pictures of the waterway. While yes, it is a stream in certain parts of the year, I want to be clear that we're not talking about the Tchefuncte River here, or even the Bogachita River. It's a very, very small waterway. It is dry many parts of the year, most of the year. Right now, it's probably dry. It's dry in those pictures. There is water that flows there, and we understand the need to protect it, but we respectfully suggest that 50-foot, we believe, is adequate. The next is the 100-foot perimeter setback. And this is where it gets a little bit more complicated for me to explain to you without use of the drawing that you have in front of you. So on the southern portion of the property along Highway 16, we will comply with the 100-foot setback. We have the room to do it, makes good sense to do it, and we're not asking for any relief on the southern area. As you move north, and we go through that very narrow part of the property, as I said, it's 300 to 350 feet. If we take 100 feet from both sides, we've got about 100 feet left in the middle that we could do little more than drive through. So for that area, as you'll notice on the drawing, we're requesting 50 feet. And we believe that that should be respectfully adequate. As we move further to the north and the property widens out, we had initially requested 50 feet. Staff, Ms. Lambert's comments suggested that there was dissatisfaction with that proposal, and so we've reevaluated that. And what we would propose on that most of the northern section is that it be 75 feet, and that there not be allowed any commercial excavations in that area. We would ask for the ability to be able to place our roadway within that area. So we wouldn't have excavation activities, but we would have a 70-foot setback where no excavation takes place. And then on the inside of that 75 feet, we would ask to be able to place our roadway, which would be about 20 feet or so. And that along the entire perimeter. I would note that there are no houses that are immediately adjacent to the property. In fact, to our north, it's nothing but vast timberland. Most to the west is timberlands in that area. Likewise, to the east, there are no homes that are immediately adjacent to the property. If you take the 75 feet we're proposing and the area that is across that property line, there are hundreds and hundreds of feet before you reach any residence. And so we believe that the 75 feet would serve to preserve the buffer that the staff is looking for, that we understand needs to be there, but also give us a reasonable use of the property in that area. The one other caveat, if you'll notice along the northern boundary, I have a green line there where I say no setback. We would ask that you consider not requiring a setback in that location, and here's why. That property to the north, across that property line, is also zoned I-1. That property is intended for the same use and purpose as the property that is before you. So ostensibly, we would be creating a buffer from the same use on both sides of that property line. As I said, it's already zoned I-1. It was zoned I-1 at the same time that this 41-acre tract was zoned I-1. So they'll have they'll have the same uses in time, and it didn't seem to us that there would be a need for a buffer against the same use that we would be having on both sides of that line. That's what we would respectfully request. We've got a unique and limited configuration of our property here that's creating these hardships. If the variance is not granted, as I said, much of the property would be totally unusable. I don't think that was the intent of the ordinance. We've tried to make proposals that reasonably protect the buffers, have setbacks in place that can serve their proper function for our neighbors. But we would ask for the 50 feet along the waterway, 50 feet along the east and west side at the southern end, 75 feet as you move further north with the ability to have our access road inside that, and then we would ask for your consideration of no setback where we abut other I-1 and other sand and gravel excavations. Thank you very much for your consideration of these requests. I know that's a lot to throw at you. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that any of the board members may have at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any opposition to this request? Anyone here like to speak in opposition? Is there what's the name? Mr. Franklin who?
Kyle.
Mr. Franklin Kyle? Yes, sir. Please come up, state your name and address, please.
Thank you. Franklin Kyle, Kyle Associates, 638 Village Lane North. We're an engineering firm that has worked with Mr. Marone and Mr. Cambry on this project, and we fully support the request. That's it.
Thank you, sir. And the other one is from Mr. Paul Marone, and he's already, okay. Seeing no opposition, we'll go forward. I'll recognize myself first. Can I do that? I guess I can. Number one, please somebody, Mr. Marone or Mr. Cambry, tell us what goes on. What is the that area out there, for as far as you can drive and see, what goes on out there until you get to Washington Parish? So if you go from whatever that highway is up there all the way across to Washington Parish, what goes on up there? That's one. And number two, is this waterway that goes up the east side, is there any wetlands involved?
Okay. I'll answer the second one first, and then maybe I'll ask Mr. Cambry so there are some wetlands along that waterway. However, those wetlands would all be, and I'll ask both to correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't think I am, all of those wetlands would be encompassed within the 50 feet that we're proposing. So we are not proposing to disturb any of the wetlands that follow that waterway down our east side. And yeah, and I think it's in the package. And as far as what kind of goes on along that area,
Yeah.
let Mr. Cambry speak to that.
I mean, along Highway 16, there are residents along the highway itself as you move west from Sun. There's a lot of old historic sand and gravel operations in that area. That's what the whole village of Sun was there because of sand and gravel. It's there because that's where the good Lord put it when he made the river. So we're there because it's there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would now like to recognize Mr. Spees.
Thank you. Either one of y'all can answer the question that I have. Is it's going to be sand and gravel? Is that what it's going to be?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
what will be
And
mined.
and so you're digging holes up and
Yes,
taking
sir.
away?
It'll be
Okay.
an excavation.
Okay, now, will that block any of the waterways, or would that cause a problem for neighbors or anything like that, or?
Well, no, we can't excavate in waterways. That's why we have to
Right, I
ask for
got
the
that, I got
permits and
that.
permission and
Right.
do the Corps of Engineers studies. You can't block any of that.
Okay,
no,
so the normal drainage should be,
yes, it would
should be
maintained.
like it
That's
is.
why we're asking, yeah. It's maintained.
okay,
We don't disturb anything that comes onto the property, that's to impede anyone else's drainage in the area.
all right, okay, good, thank you.
I would like to take a second and recognize Ms. Thomas is here, and she will be a voting participant starting with this case. Now I'd like to recognize Mr. Blush.
All right, thank you, sir. And your name is, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Shane Cambry, 21040 Smith Road,
Okay.
Covington, Louisiana.
Okay, Mr. Shane, I just have one question, and, because I don't really see any trouble with this, but my question is, what sort of estimated negative impacts do you see or foresee or potentially could happen if we were to grant this variance, and I'm particularly interested on that 50-foot setback on the eastern side.
Well, I mean, I personally, as the operator, I don't see the negative setbacks, that with the 50 feet.
Okay, has staff had any recommendations or anything that we can talk about, or?
Well, as stated in the staff report,
Right.
we can see that the property narrows down in the middle. And, this is something to consider because obviously, and Mr. Marone explained it very well, providing a 500-foot and a 100-foot with basically no access could be provided to the rear. So there's some consideration to take place as far as, the middle portion of the property, as I stated in one of the recommendation of the staff report.
Right, and I would have to agree with Mr. Marone that, just the shape of the property does create its own hardships for this type of operation, which has been approved as a zoning, or approved zoning usage. So that's all I had, though. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to recognize Mr. Daly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask about just the overall setback, the 100-foot setback. Say, in theory, it was retained around all sides. Is that essentially, it's not cutting off access, but it's compressing essentially the useful area of the excavation? Is that not a viable size for an excavation operation?
Correct. It reduces the ingress and egress also in that southern end of the property, our ability to even access the land itself.
Yeah, so we have a site plan that sort of has, is that a one-way road going around the site? And then it's like a loop?
Yeah, just be a
essentially?
loop road, just for internal access.
And that's typical for a
For a
sand
mine operation, yeah. You have to have access around
the way
the
around?
excavation,
Yeah.
And it has, borders and earthen boundaries to prevent you from going into it.
Sure, right.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
Right, off the edge. Sure. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to recognize Ms. Thomas.
Mr. Chairman, I want to apologize for being late. Traffic is a little crazy right now, so I apologize for that. And my question was about the road as well. So my apologies to you who have come, and my apologies to the chairman and the board for being late.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Pardon me?
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I'd
Ms.
like,
Lambert has a
I'd like
question.
to ask a question in regards to this document here that was provided. It appears to me that maybe there is more wetlands, or is this, what is identified in red? Would you like me to bring it?
I think I saw it. You can show it to me. I think I have the right one. Yes, I have that.
So is that wetlands or?
So, yes, so on that drawing, the crossed hatch areas are the wetlands. And so if you look along the eastern boundary, you will see, to Mr. Ballantyne's earlier question about wetlands along that creek, you'll see that we stay out of all of those wetlands along that side. The wetlands in the northern part, the middle of the property, our intent would be to permit those. Yeah, we would have to permit those wetlands on the northern part of the property.
Okay, so you're crossing in 3 spots there according to this drawing. So you would have to get permission from the Corps.
To be able to do that,
Okay.
That's correct. Those 3 spots to the north, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 3097, 3097.
We have a motion by Mr. Spies to approve case number 3097. And could I add a rider to that? And if it's approved, then we would approve it in accordance with staff comments.
Well, is it according to staff comments or according to the new plan that
According to the new plan.
submitted by Mr. Morone?
Right, yes.
Okay, and that also to have scale drawings submitted showing the buffers and showing the road.
Yes, yes. Those portions of the staff comments regarding the scale drawings, certainly we understand that would be a responsibility, we'd comply.
Thank you.
And
We have
one other question.
a motion by Mr. Spees.
One other thing. Should that permit be covered in our motion that he's talking about?
Wetlands,
That we-
wetlands permit and land clearing permit. Wetlands and land clearing.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
Based
I have a-
on- Based on the amendment or the additional information, I would second that.
I have a second by Ms. Thomas, a motion on the motion by Mr. Spees as amended. Any other discussion or comment? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
Mr. Valentine? All in favor, motion carries.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The next case for this afternoon is BOA case number 3099. It's a request by an applicant in an A2 suburban district to allow for the placement of an accessory structure within the front yard. The property is located at 17623 3 River Road, Covington, Louisiana. The applicant and residence is Vaquero Group and Mr. Nick Vaquero. Staff comments, please.
Yes. My name is Nick Vaquero.
Wait a minute, I got to get staff
sorry.
comments. She goes first.
Sorry.
The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a 1,500 square foot accessory structure, two-car garage with a porch in front of an existing single-family residence. While it may be possible to locate the accessory structure within the rear yard, the structure would have to be elevated to the topography and the elevation of the land. There's no objection to this request considering that the accessory building is proposed to be located on a 1.23 acre parcel of land, approximately 80 feet from the front property line, and it does not exceed the maximum allowable percentage of 7.5% of the area of the lot on which the main building is situated.
Thank you. Now, state your name and address, please.
Okay. My name is Nick Vaquero. I reside at 2606 West 15th Avenue in Covington, and I'm representing Charles and Jenny Crow on this project. So I met my client over 20 years ago. My father and I built their primary residence at the back of the property located on the river. When they came to us to build the house, they had purchased it with a guest house in midway of the property and the existing garage/barn structure at the front of the property. And they had toyed with tearing that barn down and building a new garage at some point, but it never gained any headway. And then Hurricane Ida kind of made the decision for them. Dropped some trees on it and it was demolished. So we were forced to remove the debris. And they decided that they wanted to build a new garage atop the existing footprint. And we didn't get that done within the 6-month period because my client was fighting with the insurance company on the claim. So by the time the funds were granted and we got blueprints and engineered drawings, we were, well into a year after the remnants of the structure were torn down. So the structure that we want to build is, if you look at it from an aesthetic point of view, it's a much nicer looking building than what was there. There are some existing buildings. I know of at least one on 3 Rivers Road that the garage is out front of the house. And I just also would like to add that my client, the main purpose of the garage is to take personal goods from the home when the river's rising, because they've had some flooding there. The water's never gone in the house, but underneath the house is always flooded. And they move their vehicles and tools and different items like that to high ground. And so that's what the garage is mainly used for moving personal goods and when a storm's coming or the river's flooding.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Is there anyone here in opposition to this case this afternoon? Seeing none, I will recognize myself to ask a question. You have neighbors on either side. Are your neighbors okay with what you're doing?
I haven't talked to any of the neighbors. I don't know if my client has. They are pretty personal. They don't really go out much and talk to people, especially since COVID. So I don't know of any opposition. I do know that the placard's been placed out at the street, so they can't miss them.
One of the neighbor called to inquire.
Okay.
Explain, what the request was, and there was no objection. I don't know which one it is, across in front on each side.
Yeah, there's only one on each side. Yeah.
Just in passing, I would like to recognize that all the yellow signs, with the exception of the property on, what is it, Percale? Anyway, they were all in place, standing up, perfect.
Good.
Okay, let me cancel myself. Mr. Blanche.
Well, just in considering this and understanding the position of the Crows with regards to the insurance companies, this is a built-in hardship because of what they've had to endure. I understand it. I get it. Friends have been through much the same with insurance companies. I would have to assume that had they had a good experience with their insurance company, this would have already been completed and back on track. So I don't see where it presents a problem for anyone in the neighborhood. It was an existing structure to begin with. I do understand the concept too of wanting to put higher, your property to higher ground in that circumstance. So personally, I have no issue with this.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
To approve the variance as listed.
I have a motion from Mr. Daly to approve the request for variance as submitted.
Not second.
And a second from Mr. Blanche. Any other comments, or please vote with your screen.
Motion carries.
Motion unanimously. Okay. The next case for this afternoon is BOA case number 3126. This is a request by applicant in an A4 single-family residential district to reduce the required front setback from 30 feet to 10 feet to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. Property is located at 1049 Preval Street, Mandeville, Louisiana. The applicant and representative is Miss Nancy Landers. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a single-family residence 10 feet from the front property line. As shown on the attached survey, the owner purchased a portion of the parish right-of-way to allow access to Lot 25A1 from Preval Street. The location of a drainage ditch prevents access from to the property from Course Carson. Since the property is only 110 feet deep, the size of the residence as proposed with a depth of 56 feet could not meet the minimum setback of 30 feet in the front and the required 25-foot setback in the rear. In order to meet the required setbacks, the location of the proposed residence will have to be adjusted and the size of the residence would also have to be modified. Should the board be in favor of granting the variance as requested, it should be subject to the attached site plan. Should the board not be in favor of granting the requested variance, it should be subject to submitting a revised site plan meeting the setback requirements.
Ma'am, please state your name and address, please.
Nancy Landers, 1643, God, I forget. I'm just renting. It's 1643 Calhoun Street, Mandeville, Louisiana, 70448.
Do you have anything else to add about your case this afternoon?
Well, the front of the house faces the ratified property, and it wouldn't have been an issue if it was still Course Carson, because that would have been my address. But since I bought the property, that street no longer exists. So my address is on the side, and so that's why there's an issue.
Okay, thank you. Did we get, oh. Okay, I was going to ask for any opposition. Is there a mark check? Yes, sir. Would you like to comment?
prior to this meeting. She set me straight, and I really just need a clarification. At this point, I don't believe I'm objecting it. I just want, speaking for Old Mandeville Woods, that's where I live, 1850 Old Mandeville Lane, which is.
Ask your point for
Okay.
clarification.
All right, so the setback will be, it was going to be 30 feet, up to 10 feet, facing Proval, which is the long leg of the lot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Everybody, we thought it was taking it from the short width, moving it forward, closer to which street is not there. So we just thought it was going to stick out like a sore thumb, because we're all 50-foot setback. She would only be set back from the street. Misunderstanding?
Good point.
We all good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Is there anyone else here this afternoon in opposition to the request for this case? Seeing none, I'd like to recognize Mr. Blosh.
Okay, and this is more of a question for staff. Helen, did we not have a case, this case, or was it another case? I'm remembering this
That's correct.
vaguely. Is this the same property?
That's correct.
Okay.
There was originally another variance requested, and at the time, Mrs. Landers, thought that she would be able to access through Course Carson, although she was purchasing a portion of the road, but there's a very deep ditch on that side, which makes it almost impossible to access. So basically, she had to change her plan, and her address is now on Preval, which where your address is where your front of the residence is.
Okay, I'm remembering this now. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
Case 2022-3126 for Board of Adjustments, I'd like to approve request that the request be approved as submitted.
I have a motion from Mr. Blosh to approve the variance as requested. Do I have a second?
I second.
And a second from Ms. Thomas. Any other comment or question or anything? None. Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
All in favor, motion carries.
Your request passed unanimously. Okay, the next case, last case for this afternoon, BOA case number 3127. Request by applicant in a PUD, a planned unit development overlay to reduce the required rear setback from 25 feet to 5 feet to allow for an addition to an existing single-family residence. The property is located at 517 Solitude Way, Covington, Louisiana. The applicant and the representative are Mr. and Mrs. Loop. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for a 25-foot long by 18-foot wide or 525 square foot addition to an existing single-family residence. The proposed addition consists of a covered outdoor kitchen. While the property is directly abutting a 30-foot wide green space, the requested variance is self-imposed and a personal preference rather than a hardship. As you can see, just before the meeting, I distributed a revised plan that Mr. and Mrs. Liu submitted. Right here a moment. And as it's stated in a staff report, they were originally trying to go to 5 feet, but due to the fact that there is currently a drainage servitude in the back, they have to stay 10 feet from the rear property line. So they've adjusted their plan. As you can see, they're now requesting to add to the residence the same concept here, as you can see on the plan, but they're requesting to go to 10.6 feet, if I'm not mistaken?
That's correct.
That's
Ms. Lamb.
correct. So this is the revised variance that is being requested.
Okay. Please state your name and address and add anything that you would like to add to the case.
Yes, sir. My name is Ben Loop, address 517 Solitude Way, Covington, Louisiana, 70433. I think Ms. Lambert pretty much said it all. We'd like to extend our backyard and put in a kitchen. We have a hard time growing grass back there. It stays nasty with the shade from the green space. It would just make it a lot more usable space for my family and I.
Okay. I recognize myself. How about, do we have a homeowners association for your area here and neighbors? Any, we don't have any opposition. Can you comment on that?
I sure can. Yeah, we've got an approval letter from the homeowners association and signatures from both neighbors approving the project.
We have the board's approval. You submitted no objection letters from your neighbors?
They signed off on the backup to the approval letter. I've got a copy of it here.
Oh, okay,
If you'd
thank
like
you.
to see it.
So we have signatures from the abutting neighbors.
Good. Okay. Have any other questions from the board or staff or anything?
Yeah, I got one.
Oh, I'd like to recognize Mr. Spees.
Thank you. Mr. Luke, do you have a swimming pool back there?
We do, yes, sir. It's an existing swimming pool when we bought the home.
Okay. So it is up to, it's right next to the
Right next to the proposed outdoor kitchen.
yeah, right. And it's right next to the wooded area, that's the drainage area?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, the kitchen will end up lining up with the existing swimming pool. So the current drainage it'll still be maintained.
Okay.
The 10
I mean, I'm
feet.
looking at it, it looks like there's other buildings that have been in the same way, you know?
Yes, sir. There have.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recognize Ms. Thomas.
We have had similar requests to this, and based on location and the green space, et cetera, I have no objection to this. We've done this before several times, and I think this is, something that's will help the family and also not impair the neighborhood or anything.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion then on this case to approve the request for variance.
I'll make a motion to approve with the 10.6, or sorry, is it 10.6 or 10 foot 6 inches?
10 foot 6 inches.
10 foot.
Yes, sir.
I have a motion from Mr. Daly to approve the request for variance as stated and revised. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
And Ms. Thomas seconded that motion. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
When I see the letter from the homeowners association, does it specifically state that they're okay with that encroachment upon the rear setback, or is it just approval of a structure?
It's just aesthetic, I believe.
So,
Yeah.
so the approval isn't for the actual placement, it's the aesthetics.
Yeah, they just approve aesthetics. Yeah.
Okay.
We're good?
Yeah, I suppose, thank you.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Please vote with your screen.
We have 4 yeas and 1 nay.
Your request for variance is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, that's the end of the cases for this evening. The next item on the agenda is old business, and since I am the oldest guy, I'm the oldest, and then I'll bring up 2 things. We got our ongoing thing that is in Emily's court about the votes for whatever we do there. We'll discuss that later. And my other thing on old business is how do we stand on ethics, cybersecurity, and sexual harassment training?
I have spoken to each one, and we'll have to schedule meetings so this training can take place.
Oh, we're not done. When does it have to be done by?
Can I make a request next year? I know we can't do this year, but that we possibly make some provisions to allow for us to do this at our home. I know with online learning, this seems pretty easy, especially if
I
they could
will try to
accommodate
do
us
my
on this.
best, sir, to speak with HR at this time.
I mean,
I've tried, but
I just would hope that HR would understand that not everyone is retired and that we do work, we have schedules, and it's kind of hard for us to make that happen sometimes, so.
I think that was a pointed comment.
Not at all. Not at all.
believe me, sir, I do my best. I try to, at least I set it up a computer, so.
And
Ellen, do we need to make an appointment for you to come to the trailer?
You come to my office.
Come to your office?
Yep.
Ooh, big time.
it works easily and beautifully. There is ample help. They are competent, professional, capable, quick. They can put you in there and you start punching buttons and read stuff, and you have to pass a test, and you have to get certificates. So how many?
I worked for the federal government for 38 years. I had to take this every single year, so I got it.
Are you telling me to shut up?
No, sir.
How many board members have done it?
I have not yet. I'm going to make an appointment.
Okay, we got one. But anyway, we need to get that done. Any other old business? Seeing none, how about new business? What we got?
2 new cases.
I'm sorry. Yes, our pay was approved last Thursday night. Mr. Spees was there to represent us, and it was all approved. So yes, we were getting paid. All right. And I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
2 new cases for.
We got 2 new cases for January. And what date are we on in January?
January 3rd.
January 3rd. I need, Ms. Thomas, are you in town? Would you be able to relieve me?
I am in town, and I will certainly try to work in your stead.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I'm sorry. Oh, you want me to sign that motion? How about a motion to adjourn? Got a motion to adjourn. I don't think I need a second, and we're good to go. Thank you all. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Thank you. Thank you for your service. No apology.